On this week's Mailbag episode, guys, we're in the end game now, folks. Just 2 days away from opening day, and we've got some news. With Yu Darvish expected to start the season on the IL, some final roster decisions being made, at least on the offensive side of things, decisions that your boy doesn't really agree with, and answering some of your questions and comments, as always. So, let's get to it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Tuesday, March 25th. As always, I'm your host with sometimes occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You can follow me on Twitter/X and Blue Sky at Javipeno, Javiipeno. And feel free to reach out on there because you can potentially have the chance, the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make this episode be featured on the mailbag. We'll be getting into those mailbag questions later, folks. And it is a Tuesday. We usually do mailbags on Monday, but yesterday we did a very special roundtable with all of the hosts of the NL West shows, Locked On Giants, Locked On Dodgers, Locked On Rockies, Locked On Diamondbacks, and we hashed it out, talked about a bunch of different things, did a bunch of predictions. It was a lot of fun, so go check that out. But don't worry, we'll be going back to Mailbag Mondays after this little special edition, I guess, of the show that was yesterday, guys. So go check that out if you haven't already. And today's episode, guys, is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins, so be sure to go check that out. Today's episode, guys, it is the mailbag, but we've got some news, folks. We've got some news, and it's big news. Look, it was a big weekend. What can I say? The first thing we got to talk about, I think, is the more, dare I say, salacious thing. You know, not salacious. That is a strong word to use in this, but it is the negative one, right? We've got a couple negative things, but firstly, Yu Darvish expected to start the season on the IL. This doesn't really come as much of a surprise, considering that Yu Darvish was being held out. They said they had some fatigue issues. And manager Mike Shildt confirmed Friday that Yu Darvish will miss the start of the season because of the elbow inflammation that has largely halted the right-hander's throwing since he pitched in a Cactus game last week. He expected to join fellow starters Matt Waldron and Joe Musgrove on the injured list. And Shildt, by the way, reading from The Athletic, sought to downplay the severity of what was largely expected news. In quotes, "I don't know what the time frame will be. It's too early to tell," Shildt said, "but the best laid plans don't always go in a perfectly straight line. Yu's had a little bit of a setback and will reevaluate as it goes. We feel pretty comfortable with that some rest. With some rest and getting ramped up back up will be the answer at the moment." Yeah, okay. So here's the thing. This isn't a big surprise, but number one, the first thing that comes to mind when I heard about this, and frankly what first came to mind when we just heard about the inflammation and the fatigue and all that stuff, is the Nick Pivetta signing really was a lifesaver for this team. Like, I know that the top two guys on this rotation are great, but considering last year, the trades, and frankly, years before that the Padres had done with Robbie Snelling last year, right? A guy who might make the Marlins opening day roster, which I know doesn't say like a ton, right? Because it's the Marlins, but even still, it's still a guy that you'd have in your rotation, right? Considering they've traded a lot of their pitching prospects over the years, and they didn't really have too many backups, this is kind of what was the danger, potentially. Now, don't get me wrong, they've had some bad luck that you can't predict for. Brian Hoeing was a candidate for the starting pitching rotation as well. He got hurt. Matt Waldron certainly was a candidate for the starting pitching rotation before this happened. So, don't get me wrong, they've had some bad luck too, but without the Nick Pivetta signing, you're looking at a team that has potentially as their number 3 starter, Stephen Kolek or Kyle Hart. Instead, those are your 4 and 5 starters. Now, we have to hope that one of those guys breaks through. We have to hope very much. We have to hope that Matt Waldron comes back because I think Matt Waldron can be a depth piece who could fill in if anything sort of goes wrong. I think he can at least deliver a decent stretch or stretches at a time because we saw that last year, that he's able to when he's locating his knuckleball and sweeper, especially on the outside corners, that he can be a decent major league starter who, maybe not decent major league starter, but a major league starter. Let's just say that, right? And that matters a lot over the course of the season. But with the Pivetta signing, it just puts everything in that perspective. Hopefully this injury isn't too long. And I imagine a lot of people are probably thinking right now, and feel free to let me know in the comments, that, Yu Darvish, was this a mistake? Extending this guy at the end of the 2023 season, because since then, he's pitched 218 innings, which isn't bad. That's actually not bad whatsoever. it's not good, right? Like, it's not great, right? But it's not horrible, I think. But when you dig deeper into that, it's worth noting that in 2023, most of those innings were innings that, like, he clearly was laboring through and he was hurt. He pitched to a 4.5 ERA. So basically, if you take that out, which is about 130 innings or so, he's basically been majority hurt for ever since he signed this contract extension. And a lot of people are probably rightfully so, like, well, why did we do this? Well, I don't know, guys. AJ Preller gets a little bit trigger happy. What do you want me to say? It's been a common critique that I've had of him on this show. And I think Darvish is great. And if there is any pitcher who can figure it out and work their way past the age curve and do things, Yu Darvish is not the worst bet that you can make in the world. However, it's worth noting that the guy is super old. And while he can still be an effective major league starter, I still think a really effective number 3 in a rotation in some ways. It's worth noting that at his age of 38 years old, it's not going to get better. And even before this, it's not like Yu Darvish was Max Scherzer or Clayton Kershaw, right? Like, whatever kind of guys you want to throw out there, he's had seasons where he's missed time. You know what I mean? Whether it be back in 2016 with the Rangers or 2014 with the Rangers, right? Back in 2021, he missed a little bit of time, right? Especially in 2021 with the Padres, you saw that he didn't produce as well when he started having some issues with his health. This has just kind of been the story with him. So that extension feels like, especially with this news, it's just a reminder of, like, that was a move you made after he had an excellent 2022 campaign. And I get it, you're worried about your pitching depth, but you're also sitting there going, man, would it have been that bad if we had just tried and gone out there and did Nick Pivetta type of signings? Would it be that bad if the team prioritized just having an ever-rotating, cast and saving some extra money potentially in some other areas? I don't know, but it does raise the question. I'd love to know what you guys think, but hopefully it's not too long. That is going to be the big deal, right? We have to monitor the situation. Can he come out and give 120 innings this year? That's the question. It's going to be a question for the Padres all season, unfortunately. But folks, that wasn't it. No. Believe you me, that was not the only bit of evidence, bit of announcements that were made, because we had some roster decisions on the offensive side of things. And let me tell you, I always tell you guys, don't want to be stuck too much in a bubble. That is Padres Twitter, that is Padres Reddit, that is Padres Facebook. I don't really go on Facebook, but still, I understand you can get stuck in an echo chamber. I am always out there saying, like, I got to make sure that I don't use that as the ultimate litmus test for how Padres fans, or just fans and just baseball experts in general, feel, because that is true. But let me tell you, people are not thrilled with the signings that the Padres have had, or not the signings, the additions and subtractions that the Padres are expected to make. It has been finalized basically on the offensive side of things, the bench for your San Diego Padres. And let me tell you, I know. I'm not going to lie, guys. I don't know why I almost said Los Angeles Dodgers there for a second. I'm in a weird mood. The side of my mouth is hurting for some reason. I don't know why. All I've had is, like, pistachios over the last couple days. I don't know what's going on with me. But the 6 cuts that are expected are going to upset some people. And I think that some of the additions more so are going to be upsetting people. And we got to talk about that. We got to talk about that, guys, because the biggest ones are not ones that I predicted. It is Martin Maldonado, Yuli Gurriel, Jose Iglesias, and Brandon Lockridge are the ones that are expected to make the team. And corresponding moves, that means that we're probably going to see some roster cuts incoming. Connor Joe, Mason McCoy, and Luis Campusano, the latter of which lost the backup catcher battle to Martin Maldonado, which, like, we'll get into that in a second. They can all be options to the minors, at least. And then Oscar Gonzalez has an in-season opt-out clause. He was another person vying potentially for that left field platoon or what have you. In his contract, if he's not with the big league club. This is reading from MLB.com, by the way. Meanwhile, Tyler Wade and Eggy Rosario are in jeopardy of being lost from the organization. The 2 utility players are out of options and cannot be sent to the minors without first clearing waivers. So, folks, it's a little bit weird. Oh, and by the way, Gavin Sheets is the other player that is expected to make this team, possibly being the co-DH alongside Yuli Gurriel. Folks, I got a lot of thoughts, but you're going to have to wait until after the break to hear them, because we got to talk about some of our friends that we love very, very much, our sponsors, in just 1 second. Folks, one of those sponsors today that we got to talk about is our good friends over at the new sponsor of the show, and that is our friends over at Just Ingredients. Let me tell you, folks, When it comes to fueling your body, quality matters. That's why Just Ingredients is changing the game with clean, high-quality products designed to support better health and peak performance. Just Ingredients offers an NSF-certified line of protein powder, electrolytes, pre-workout, and creatine, all rigorously tested to ensure they're free from substances banned by major athletic organizations. And Just Ingredients has also partnered with two-time MVP Bryce Harper, who trusts their NSF-certified sports line to fuel his training and recovery. So if you want to fuel your performance, pre-workout, you want to get your grass-fed protein and deliver real results, guys, well, Just Ingredients is here to help you out. So visit justingredients.us and use code LOCKEDONMLB for 20% off. And for more wellness tips, follow at just.ingredients on Instagram. So how about that? Even if you don't get from them, they're still helping you out. Remember, LOCKEDONMLB for 20% off, and go check them out at just.ingredients on Instagram. Folks, that's not all, though. When it comes to not health, but like, let's say your mental health to a degree gets impacted by this in many ways. Let's just be honest. Your money, your savings, how are you going to figure all that out? Every time you check your bank account and you wonder, where did my money go? Let me tell you, between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And let me tell you, Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center, folks. Let me tell you, you're going to feel like it's command and conquer out here, but for just yourself, not literally conquering. You're conquering your own finances. And let me tell you, you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in just one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. So I guess, yeah, that is a form of conquering in the wealth sense. Maybe you build it. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But whatever. I'm trying with the analogy here. I'm a video game nerd. What do you want from me? But guys, check it out, guys. There's easy collaboration as well. You can manage money with your partner, and it's going to be smoother than ever. You could track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Go check it out. And just like that, everybody, we are back thriving for the most part and vibing here on the Locked On Padres podcast. Remember, go follow me on Twitter/X and Blue Sky as we approach opening day. Let me tell you, folks, man, let me tell you, we got some good times. We got some good times coming up. Before we get into the mailbag, let me just talk about the back end of the bench additions that were announced. Like I said before, it is expected that Maldonado, Martin Maldonado, Yuli Gurriel, Gavin Sheets, and Brandon Lockridge will be making the team. So my predictions were at the beginning of the offseason. I thought that Tirso Ornelas was going to be a guy. I also thought that Connor Joe probably would be a guy because he has some major league experience to a degree. But the Padres instead decided to go with major league experience that hasn't been a positive impact on any MLB team in a long time. In the case of Yuli Gurriel and Martin Maldonado, especially. Now, here's the thing. Let's start positive. Brandon Lockridge. Look, I would be hypocritical to hate this move, but then say how much I want Tirso Ornelas and Eggy Rosario to make the team because we got to just see what they have, right? And bottom line is that Brandon Lockridge had a really good spring. 364, 391, 500 slash line. He's got speed, which the Padres like. He's not necessarily going to be a super high, strikeout rate guy. He's going to make some contact. And with the defense as well. Last year, also, he played pretty well, by the way. It's worth pointing out. Like, he did play well in the Cactus League this past season, batting .364 with an .891 OPS. He also swiped 7 bags and played excellent defense. So I get that addition. I get that one. It's okay. Look, I'm not going to freak out about this one. Jason Hayward is probably going to platoon with him in left field. It's actually possible that Brandon Lockridge could be the starting day left fielder. At least it's someone new. Is it a guy that I think has as much upside? I'm not sure. But maybe part of this is that Tirso, they're like, you know what? We can maybe send him back to the minors. We got another option. I don't know. Maybe that's it. And in fairness, Tirso Ornelas has winded down a little bit. He hasn't been producing the same way he was at the beginning of spring training, at least a little bit as of late. The overall slash line is good, but as of late, not as much. I'm okay with Brandon Lockridge. It's fine. Then you've got Gavin Sheets, which is one of those additions where I could see this changing in just 3 weeks, right? It all depends on how he produces. He's probably going to be the other DH on this team. And in fairness to him, while he has not been a very good player for the majority of his major league career because he's kind of a liability in the outfield which is, of course, not something that the Padres want. We've seen that they like low strikeout guys lately, and especially when filling out the roster, and guys that are going to play good defense. But with Gavin Sheets, he's been a guy who has shown power before. He's hit at least 10 home runs in all of the major league seasons that he's been in, which isn't saying necessarily a lot, but he has showcased slugging ability before. And I think with him, it's also a question of just, hey, maybe the White Sox didn't know what they were doing with him, right? Maybe the White Sox were stupid, and we know how to develop this guy better. It's possible. Crazier things have happened. More importantly, though, he was raking this spring training, so I understand them wanting to reward that. I don't agree with it. I would much rather have Eggy Rosario on this team. I think Eggy Rosario is young. I think he could play some really good defense if you want him on the roster. And most importantly, oh, and by the way, Jose Iglesias made the team. I forgot to mention that too. He's expected to make it, although I haven't seen an official confirmation of that. Then you have the situation with Eggy Rosario where I think he could play good defense, and at least you could platoon him against lefties on certain days. Maybe you move Luis Arias to second base if Jake Cronenworth isn't able to get back to what his usual numbers are against lefties, which is not as good, but he could at least, not be a detriment to the team the way he was last year against lefties. You want to sit him instead. You put in Eggy Rosario at second base. I wouldn't have minded that. But with the Jose Iglesias addition, that's probably part of this as well, right? They were like, you know what, he's going to play second base or something like that, and that's what I think the Padres are looking at. Fine. My issue with this is Yuli Gurriel and Martin Maldonado. Martin Maldonado has been getting hype because of his baseball IQ. And I don't know how I feel about that, considering that Martin Maldonado over the last 2 seasons has been good for negative 2.7 wins above replacement. Or I'm sorry, negative 2.3 wins above replacement over the last 2 seasons. Last year in 48 games, he had an 11 WRC plus. The year before that, he had a 67. He's not a good defensive player. He strikes out a lot. And his last good season was basically in 2020, which was a shortened season. So I don't know what's going on here. He doesn't play good defense. He strikes out a lot. He's not a good batter. And it seems like they're keeping him on the team because of IQ and baseball IQ and leadership, whatever. Okay, before we get into that, let me just say, Padres fans, you should be used to this team talking about intangibles and then seeing no production on the field whatsoever as they miss the playoffs. And I know that's what a lot of people are feeling when they hear this announcement. In fairness, though, it's not like Luis Campusano is Buster Posey, right? This is a guy who has disappointed. He has not improved the defense. And I think that they have a decent judge of that, right? I still think I would have given Luis Campusano the shot because it's Martin Maldonado. And at the age of 38, I do not see what exactly you're planning here. I just don't get it. I do not get it. And I think that with these two guys, thankfully, Campusano, you have another option with him. So maybe you want to give him some extra reps in AAA and whatnot. At least I can get that. For Martin Maldonado, I don't get it. But at least I can understand they're like, let's let him play in the minors first and then maybe bring him up later after Maldonado, basically, without question, is going to be pretty bad for a while as the backup catcher to Elias Diaz. Anyway, the last addition is the one that I think really drove everybody nuts, and that's Yuli Gurriel, a player who is, I repeat, 40 years old. This man is 40 years old. Here's his WRC plus over the last 3 years. 83, 75, 85. His last good season was in 2021, and it was a great one. He had a 133 WRC plus. But ever since then, he has been good for negative 0.1 wins above replacement, negative 0.4 wins above replacement, and negative 0.7 wins above replacement. And not to mention, as we talked about on the show, not the best history with Yu Darvish. I understand that he said on the record that he's fine with it, but I'm a little skeptical. Anyway, here's how I'll sum it up. The Padres have not proven, and one of the things we did with the episodes over the past few weeks on this year's show that I really enjoyed doing is we kind of looked at the past 5 years with the Padres' ability to accrue depth, whether it be back of the rotation starters, which I think they've actually been really good at doing. I really do. And I think they deserve a lot of credit for that. Whether it be the bullpen, something I also think that they deserve a little bit of credit for. But when it comes to the offense, it has more often than not, and feel free to go check out the episode on that, been a miss. So, forgive me for not having a lot of faith that a 38-year-old who's been negative wins above replacement for the past 2 years, and then a 40-year-old who's been negative wins above replacement for the past 3 years, that these are guys that we trust the Padres know what they're doing, and that these guys have higher upside than Eggy Rosario, who you might lose on waivers. You might just lose the kid. And you basically never gave him a fair shot. That's my issue. Why are we acting like we have some really special player who's going to be a 100 WRC plus guy, even if he's a little bit boring? Why are we acting like these are high floor players? That's what I don't understand here. I understand with Lockridge, it's fine. Look, they can make their decision. Lockridge has had a good spring, and frankly, I didn't talk about it enough. And he provides good speed, and he provides good defense. That's fine. I'm okay with that. I'm even okay to an extent with Gavin Sheets because I actually think they might just try him out for a little bit. If it doesn't work, he's gone. But bottom line is he's been raking in spring. I get it. But for me, I look at this and say, why Gurriel? Why is it not Eggy Rosario? I'd rather have Teoscar Nellis as the DH. I'd rather have Tyler Wade. Maybe not. But honestly, maybe a little bit. I do not understand why he got that position. I just think with Eggy, you can put him in there against lefties, and we literally saw he had like a 400 WRC plus against them. I'm exaggerating. But he had crazy good numbers in the limited time. And by the way, limited time that was inconsistent, which I put some stock into. I don't understand why Eggy Rosario isn't making the team, especially when he doesn't have another option left. So you might be losing this guy who you've never really given a fair shake at the major league level, who's trying his best and he's played good defense before. You're not giving him a shot when, like I mentioned with the Cronenworth situation, Cronenworth can sit against lefties, and then you could have Eggy Rosario as the lefty. Zip's projections love him because he can hit the ball hard and play good defense. And you're getting rid of that chance, even if it is a small one, for a 40-year-old who has not hit well in like 3 seasons. I do not understand the thinking here, and the Padres have not shown me over the past few years with additions of Matt Carpenter and Nelson Cruz and Robinson Cano and Jake Marisnick and all these random veterans that nobody likes, that I can trust them. Last year, mostly over the past few years under the AJ Preller regime, was an anomaly with them hitting on Donovan Solano, Jurickson Profar, Luis Ariz, and frankly even Kyle Higashioka too. That was an anomaly, right? That doesn't usually happen with this team. And frankly, those guys, at least with Profar, he had been good with the Padres. And then Donovan Solano, his last season, he was a very good hitter. These guys have not shown that in a while. So why are you giving up on Eggy Rosario like that? I don't understand it. I don't understand it. And it's really annoying. But best believe we will be talking about that as the season goes on, because I really do think I'm right about this. And we're going to see Yuli Gurriel struggle. Maybe he won't. Maybe for at least a week or two, he'll be good. Fine. But I don't understand why you basically are losing Eggy Rosario for the chance that a 40-year-old who hasn't been good in 3 years is all of a sudden going to be able to hit. I don't care if he doesn't strike out too much. The guy doesn't hit. I don't get it. I don't get it. But I've been wrong before, ladies and gentlemen. And we got to talk about some of the things I was wrong about or might be wrong about in the last segment, guys, when we answer some of your questions. Not too many this week, but they're going to be fun ones. And we'll get to them after a word from our sponsor. And what is our sponsor, ladies and gentlemen? It is our good friends over at The Duel that has fans, guys. That is FanDuel. With March Madness here, FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Because right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Go check it out, guys. Visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long with all the different favorites, men's and women's. Go check it out, guys. It's getting juicy out there, and FanDuel has got you covered. And just like that, everybody, we are back, thriving, and most certainly vibing here in the last segment of the Locked On Padres podcast. Let's get into the mailbag. First question up front, coming from my guy, Abdil, with this lovely Optimus Prime avatar on Twitter and apparently Puerto Rican. So my man, we love you so much, sir. He says, couple days late, but do you think Yu Darvish's comments earlier this spring meant something? Considering he's been missing a lot of time the last few years, and this year he might start late again, which we did know about, officially now. Could he be announcing his retirement at the end of the season, maybe 2026? This is a good question, Abdiel, because I actually really do think that this is possible. There is something about Yu Darvish and the way he's carried himself, and I think the fact that he made these comments now when he's still got like 4 years left on his contract could signal something. It is possible, and I think that with international players we see this lately, that they view these things a little bit different sometimes. It would not shock me if Yu Darvish is like, you know what, I'm good. If I cannot physically pitch, then I don't want to just stay on this team and just to hang out, basically, right? But with him getting paid $21 million and then $16 million and then 15 and then 15 over these next 4 seasons, that would be a lot of money, right? But I think that it's possible that he's like, I'm retiring and the Padres pay him and then they move on. I could see that. I really could. I don't think it's crazy. I think that if he is not physically able to pitch, that is at least a possibility, but I put it at very, very low percentages, at least as of right now. But there is something about Darvish that it wouldn't surprise me if he's like, you know what? He's a perfectionist. He's like, I don't want to end like this. I don't want to make it that I'm struggling just to be able to go out there for 20 innings, right? Maybe that's where we're at because he keeps having these injuries. It wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me whatsoever. But we'll just have to see how that shakes out. Some other questions, though, because believe me, we got some this week that are very interesting. We got a comment from @NicoP195 who says, underrated, but I think that there's a trade with the Yankees that we can benefit from. A lot of people have been messaging me, or at least commenting things of this nature when it comes to the Yankees. Look, man, we made a trade with them last year, and we kind of fleeced them to a degree, so maybe they don't want to trade with us. I could see it, but the Yankees, despite their struggles, they haven't been showing an urgency to go for it as much, with the exception of the Juan Soto trade. Could Dylan Cease make sense? Sure. But to me, I look at this as a team that is like, you know what? We're only trading Cease if we're super out of it, and we're going to work on extending Michael King, because I don't think they can extend Dylan Cease. I could be wrong, but we'll have to see. And one person definitely agrees. I should say disagree. Darth Vader 2201 says, we should keep and extend Dylan Cease. My good sir, I would love that. However, what he's projected is about a $200 million deal because of 2 top 5 Cy Young finishes. He's probably going to be that good yet again, and he's got strikeout rate stuff, and he pitches consistently. That is a guy who's going to get a big deal. And currently with the Padres roster, I do not think that they have enough room. I just don't. Michael King, on the other hand, does not have nearly the same sort of, pedigree, or I should say the same resume, I should say. And I think he could get a deal like Kevin Gausman got, where it's like a $100 million deal. That's a big difference, right? And especially, with this Padres team kind of in the financial situation that they are, I think that is the direction that they should be going in. I'd love to keep Cease, but unfortunately, for all the people who keep yelling about extend, guess what? When you keep doing that every year, eventually you get to a point where it's like, crap. We have a what payroll now? Oh God, we can't just keep everybody perpetuity. No, eventually you are going to lose your flexibility if new developments arise. Like, for example, Joe Musgrove missing a season with Tommy John surgery, or players getting worse, like Xander Bogaerts, right? These are things that happen, and that's why you shouldn't always just want to extend everybody on your team all at once. But folks, you are smart listeners. You're my listeners after all, so I imagine you've heard me on that soapbox before. But speaking of soapbox, @Koji_H commented, earlier in spring training you predicted that the Padres won't make it to the playoffs this year. Now that the regular season is around the corner, I'm curious if your prediction has changed. Yeah, my bold prediction kind of for this year is that the Padres are going to be a good team, but they will miss the playoffs. I think the D-backs are better. I think that the NL East is stacked. I think that the Braves, Mets, Phillies, and frankly, I want to say Nationals. I almost want to say Nationals, but Cubs, Reds, whatever, and then even Giants could give them a little bit of trouble. I think that the Padres are going to be pretty good this year and just barely miss the playoffs. That's my prediction. And part of it was because that's kind of the only arc that the Padres haven't had. It's always been collapse or historically unclutch or bad, first, whatever you want to call it. They never have been good and miss the playoffs. It's almost like the writing is always on the wall, and we know what kind of team this is pretty early on. No, except for the case of 2021. You guys get my point. I think that overall, it's I could see them winning 88 games this year and then missing the playoffs because the D-backs won 91, right? And then the next best teams won 90 and 89 as well. I don't know. That's just me, but we'll have to see. Moving on, though. The always lovely Mr. Rama Murdy says, love these deep dives into the players. Yes, everybody go check out the episode I did on Manny Machado on Friday. It was a lot of fun. Question for Monday's show. Who is the most important player that cannot have a bad season if we are going to make the playoffs? Is it safe to assume Mike Schilt will survive the second-year manager and team struggles? And who is the most important bench player for this team? Let's start with the last one, actually. Most important bench player, I think, is Jose Iglesias. If Jose Iglesias comes up, that's been a solid guy for a while now. He's got the vibes. He's got the aura. He's the big pop star. He was really, really, really instrumental for the Mets' success last year. I think that could be a big deal. I really do. I think that he can go out and be a really solid player, and I'm expecting him to be a solid player. So I'm really excited about that. Can Brandon Lockridge do something? Sure. Can Jason Hayward do something? Sure. But overall, I think in terms of the bench, that's kind of the guy that I'm looking at right now. I just think he's been a solid major league hitter. He's been like a 1-win player for 4 years now. And then last year, if it was legit and maybe he figured out something, maybe he could come on this team and be even better and be like a 104 WRC plus guy who plays good defense. I could see it. So I'm going to say Jose Iglesias. In terms of the other parts of your question, though, is it safe to assume Schilt will survive the second year? Manager and team struggles? No, absolutely not. Because we have seen that AJ Preller is absolutely down to fire guys. And frankly, with new ownership type of stuff going on, it wouldn't surprise me if AJ Preller's job could be on the line if there is a disaster season. I think if what my bold prediction, if that comes true, that they'll be good and make the playoffs, I think that could mean that everybody's safe. But if they have a bad season, I'm talking like 79 wins, I think everyone's on board. And unfortunately, that's just the reality, right? And bottom line is that AJ Preller has had like 9 managers over the course of his tenure, so it's totally possible he gets rid of one. Bob Melvin was a manager of the year and won the most games the Padres had won in the AJ Preller tenure at the point. I think it was 89 in 2022. That was the most they had won so far. And he still got fired because of a bad second season. So I could totally, or not fired, but mutually agreed to part, whatever you want to call it. Whew, guys, I'm sorry if I'm talking weird today. There's just something wrong with my, chest. I don't know what it is. I'm having trouble. Shortness of breath, perhaps? I don't know. But anyway, who is the most important player that cannot have a bad season if you're going to make the playoffs? I think it's Tatis. It's either Tatis or it's one of Dylan Cease and Michael King. But the reason I don't say the pitchers is because I really don't see why they would have a bad season. There's nothing in the data that suggests they will. Tatis, if he has a bad season, if he's just a 3-win player, high 3-win player, that's a big deal, especially because I'm not confident in Xander Bogaerts. I'm not confident in the rest of this team's lineup to be great. So I think if Fernando Tatis Jr., he doesn't show it this year, which I'm optimistic that he will, just drafted him in my fantasy league the other day, I that would be a big problem. I really do. I don't know how you survive with that. It's either him or Bogaerts, because at least with Tatis, his floor is still a pretty good player. Bogaerts, if all the numbers we've seen and based on everything we've seen in the last year, 2 years, I should say, with the Padres, we're looking at a nuclear disaster. Like the type of thing that craters a franchise. Anthony Rendon-esque. Except without the weird, nihilistic, I don't care about baseball type of vibes that he gives off. So we'll see. We'll see, folks. But moving on to some more questions and comments, it is Mr. David Sacanio, 2929. He commented, in terms of my Manny Machado video, he's always been loudly overrated. And so did Eric Radford 2142. He also said overrated. Oh, man. Here's the thing. I understand these comments are not in good faith. I still like reading them anyway. If you're talking about Manny Machado being overrated in terms of the playoffs, that's actually fair. We didn't talk about that as much, by the way, on the Manny Machado episode. I kind of forgot to bring up those numbers, but Manny Machado, let me give you his playoff numbers, because this is 100% fair. Because for a player like him, and I don't like using, postseason necessarily to judge a player because you got to get there in the first place, but this is a guy who every postseason that he's had has not been good, folks. It has not been good. He is a player that has been, I don't even know if I could get the full statistics and whatnot. Let me see if I could pull them up. I don't even know. In the 2018 playoffs, he basically has only had one round of playoffs in his career where he was a good player. And that's a lot for a superstar, right? You should be having more than that. In his first playoff appearance in 2012, he had a 607 OPS. That was back with the Orioles. Which, again, look, man, it happens. It's okay. It happens sometimes. You're a rookie. You know what I mean? You're just getting into the league. Then, after that, he had a bad showing in the one wild card game. He had just a hit in 4 at-bats, but that doesn't count as much. In the 2018 playoff stretch with the Dodgers, he had a 672 OPS. That's not great either. And then in the 2020 postseason, what was his OPS? Well, it was 570, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, it's not good with Manny Machado. In 2022, how did he do there? Did he finally show up in the 2022 playoffs? A little bit. Actually, in a big way, he did. In the 2022 playoffs was like the first time he basically had it. And it's not loading for me on Baseball Reference, but he did have an OPS above at least 700, and he was in the 800 range for a lot of it. But then last year, he was not very good in the postseason, right? So overall, that part of Manny Machado is overrated. But as a whole, this is a guy who's guaranteed like 3 ones above replacement every year. He's always played good defense, and he hits 30 home runs every year. So he's not overrated. No, he's just not. And that's why I like this comment from my guy, the legendary, well, he's commented on this channel a couple times, but RJPG says, good recap. I grew up in San Diego, a Padres fan, but moved to the DC area via military in 2003, so I followed the Nationals, thus Bryce Harper. Still, I heard how awesome Manny Machado is. Both Harper and Machado are the classic love him as a teammate, hate him on the other team type of players. When Padres initially signed him, I wasn't for it, but of course, I think he is great with us. Loved it when he yelled at Nando when he was pouting in the dugout. That was true leadership. Nando needed to grow up. I finally saw some other home team win the 2019 World Series rings, but in my heart, Padres will be my number one. Hope is to see a Padres World Series win before I pass away. I'm 57. Hey, man, you got some time, hopefully, man. Hey, you know what I mean? We got some time out here, but I get what you're saying, and I agree. I think that he's been, really exceptional. And another comment from Robert Murray saying, signing Manny Machado in 2019 was still a surprise to me because I was trying to figure out why Manny chose us and had no clue how we suddenly had money to afford him. It was a huge signing because it put us on the baseball map as a franchise that was actually trying to compete. Manny has turned into a solid addition and has bought into being part of San Diego. Not sure if the extension of his contract was a good idea, but if it leads us to a World Series title, we'll be happy with it. Yeah, that's the one criticism was the extension. Did they get a little too overzealous with that one? Maybe. But for now, totally agree, man. Manny Machado's been great. The only thing that you could say about him is playoffs. He has not had a big playoff moment. And for a guy who I think is a superstar and potential Hall of Famer, that is fair. But as a whole, he ain't overrated, man. Give me a break. What are we doing here? You know what I mean? What was Kike Hernandez now a Hall of Famer? He's an amazing player. That guy isn't good during the regular season, or at least not nearly as good. He just has really good playoff moments. So that's what I think those comments are about, assuming they were in good faith. But we're not done yet, folks. This one, coming from an interesting fan, at Mr. Charles Darwin 180 says, Brewers fan here. Yikes. Glad we don't have to play the Padres until June 8th, 9th, and 10th in Milwaukee. This Padres team absolutely scares me. He says, first off, the crew had Logan Henderson, referring to the Brewers, vying for a starting job in yesterday's game. He got blasted. Then the Padres really ripped everyone else on top of it. And that included 3 high-leverage relievers, Joel Payamps, Abner Uribe, and Brian Hudson. First of all, my condolences to you. Whenever I make fun of the Brewers, it's not because I'm making fun of Brewers fans. Y'all are lovely. I know some people who are Brewers fans. Good vibes. Nothing against them. I'm just sorry that your team doesn't care about winning, and they have not cared about winning since 1983, which is the last time they made the World Series, despite the fact that, and you hear this from media, talk about how great they are, how well run they are, how good any trades they are. Well, I'm like, well, the Padres get crapped out all the time. They made the World Series in like the 90s, late 90s, I think it was 98. Like, says a lot that they get a lot more flack. But then the Brewers, who have not tried and have had an easy division for years, never spend money. Just saying, I feel for you, my man. And I'm surprised you're scared of the Padres. I don't think they're that crazy, right? I don't think so. But at Ian0903 says, great episode, guys. I was talking to a friend who was a Dodgers fan the other day. Hopefully the conversation can add extra motivation to all of us to beat the Dodgers. He said, Dodgers need to be careful. The D-backs have a very good team this year, especially the starting rotation. The friend said, LOL, you want to bet who wins the NL West? You take the D-backs. No, I don't want to bet. I'm just saying the D-backs have a good team, so the Dodgers should be careful. And the person laughed at him. Yeah, Dodgers fans can be cocky, but unfortunately it is deserved in some ways, right? Look, bottom line is after they won the World Series last year, I can't talk crap the same way I used to, right? I just can't. I can't do it. So that's all I'm saying. But overall, you never know. You got to play the games. Last comment from @Lebowski619, I think is an important one. And not just because he praises me, right? He says, finally, someone who employs critical thinking on Merrill. After several horrible contracts, Hosmer, Will Myers, Xander Bogaerts, Manny Machado, Jay Cronenworth. Whoa. Manny Machado's not an awful contract. Let's be careful with that. Will Myers, not the best. I want to call it awful, but not great. Xander Bogaerts, a little bit early, but I'm kind of with you on that one, though. That one might be a danger. But it would be prudent to take a wait-and-see approach to Merrill instead of the emotional siren call of extend him. Eggy, He also says Eggy over Tyler Wade, 217 lifetime average, Wade all day, every day. Ornelas over Hayward, great take on Preller's, whiffs on old guys. Let's get younger, please. Please, brilliant episode, Javi. I think bottom line, the big thing to take away from that is, first of all, I agree on Eggy Rosario over Tyler Wade, but it turns out none of them are going to be on the team, so that's fine. But I do agree with you're agreeing with me, which is I think they need to take advantage of the fact that they can keep Jackson Merrill for a few years. That's just the position they're in. And everyone who's listening to this, who for years has been shouting about signing guys, this is why roster flexibility matters. Just in case, and I know it's rare, but it's just in case you get a Jackson Merrill that comes along and you're like, oh my God, this is awesome. How about we extend this guy instead of going for Xander Bogaerts, who, by the way, is a player that was signed and Jackson Merrill used to play shortstop. How much better would you feel about this Padres team if Jackson Merrill was on this team and Xander Bogaerts wasn't, and you had all that money that you could use to plug in some other holes? That's why you don't get super bullish and extend everybody. I even had someone saying we should extend Matt Waldron last year. Bottom line is they should be patient, and pitching is a much bigger deal. Take advantage of the fact that, look, Merrill's going to get paid. Arbitration number, it's going to go up. He's a great player. Like, it's going to happen. Take advantage of that. For now, you've already extended Tatis, Machado, Cronenworth, Xander, all these guys. So, go for pitching. Pitching is the thing that they do not have nearly the same amount of roster depth. At least we can say we've got some exciting prospects in the minors with Ethan Salas and Leota DeVries in terms of the offensive side of things. Can't really say that with pitching, right? It's Cash Mayfield, who they just drafted, and we don't know how that's going to turn out. We're going to have to see during this minor league season, but overall, those are my vibes. I would love to extend Jackson Merrill. That'd be fun, but they have extended everybody, guys. There's too many guys getting extended on this team. I would not mind them saying, you know what, for once, we're going to have to use... It's a predatory system in Major League Baseball, the arbitration, but we might have to use it for now because it's what's best for the team, and extend a Michael King instead, because that's the situation that could get really dark. If you lose Dylan Cease and Michael King, assuming you don't trade them, assuming they don't get too much from the deadline and all that stuff, if you lose them, you are heading into next year with Joe Musgrove coming off Tommy John as your top starter, then Nick Pivetta, and then maybe Yu Darvish. That's scary. That's scary. It's not atrocious, but for a team that wants to win a World Series and with a team with a big high payroll, that's a little bit scary. So that's just my opinion, guys, and I hope you agree with me. And if not, let me know in the comments why you disagree or agree with me on my takes. Would love to hear from you guys before opening day especially. And even if I don't hear from you, next Monday, the mailbag shall return to, well, the Monday spot. So feel free to message me on Twitter/X at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO, as well as Blue Sky. And also in the YouTube comments. I love reading from there, guys. So can't wait to hear from you guys. Big chunky episode, the last mailbag before we get into the regular season and whatnot. Going to be a lot of fun. Tomorrow's episode, we're talking about Michael King, looking at a deep dive of his career, then doing an outlook for 2025. Thursday's episode, we will be talking with Jake Mastriani of Locked On Braves, doing an opening day crossover preview, and then Friday we'll be recapping the first game. So it's juicy this week, guys. We're back. Locked On Padres, man. I'm excited. And stay tuned to the channel and TikTok. I'll actually be posting on TikTok more. I'm not going to link my account until I officially really start using it and making it, but going to be posting clips from the show as well and just some instant reactions as well too. So look forward to that. But with that all being said, guys, that about does it for today's edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, the only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. Remember to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. Follow me again on Twitter/X and Blue Sky. And until next time, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful. My Fire Faithful homies, take care.